Well, we haven't done it for 5 years. You've been the fucking boss for 5 years and we ain't done it. Don't you come and tell me what I'm not doing or should be doing.
Testing. 5, 4, 3, 2, testing. Good afternoon, everyone. This is another day that the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and celebrate. This event has been live streamed. Just as soon as the live stream starts, we're going to begin with a great program and great lunch as we commemorate the legacy of Thurgood Marshall and the 68th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education Supreme Court decision. I'm Emmanuel Eppie Jr, Chair of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust Board of Directors and President and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We welcome everyone. Essentially, this is a lunch week. First thing we're going to do is say grace. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, give thanks for this day that you have made as we commemorate this blessed anniversary of the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus the Board of Education. Oh Lord, help us to keep the legacy, the freedom fighter legacy of Thurgood Marshall alive and all that we do here at this important center. As we look to the past and deal with the present and look to the future, Lord, give us hope, give us justice, give us freedom, give us equality, give us equity. We thank all the brothers and sisters who come out. Now bless this food that's been prepared for the nourishment of our bodies. Bless the table, bless the spirit, and bless this event. In the name of Jesus we pray, amen. Amen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Emmanuel Eppie Jr, Chair of the Board of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust Fund and President and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. I would like to first bring up our mistress of ceremony. Sister Ebony is part of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust family, but she's also the distinguished White House correspondent for the American Urban Radio Network. And we're so blessed to have her to be the MC of today's program. So without further ado, let's welcome Sister Ebony.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chavis. Thank you for the work that you do and for the work of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. And to the President, Ms. Tommy Yearwood, thank you to those who are attending and those who are a part of TMCT, those who sit on the board, who tirelessly think of ways to keep the memory of Justice Marshall alive and his work relevant. How y'all feeling today? Look, everybody a little stuffy in this room, right? Can I tell you how important today is? Why we need to be excited that we're here in this room. And I want to start first by reading to you a tweet. And it kind of got under my skin. I just happened to come across. And this is why we have to define our own narrative and why events like this today is important and others. This is a tweet that came out, and Bill Gruskin put it out. He said, Wall Street Journal edit page says that Brown v. Board was followed by public acceptance, which is, as they say, news you won't see anywhere else. And so I went to the article because he put it out. And here's what the article said. Other high court decisions that liberalize the social order desegregation of schools, elimination of prayer in schools, interracial marriage, gay marriage, were followed by public acceptance. Not sure who wrote that. Very incorrect. Even when the rulings were very unpopular. Most came to have overwhelming support, but not Roe. That was the exception. It has never stopped. So we find ourselves at a time when we're talking about Roe v. Wade, and we're talking about the 14th Amendment, and we're talking about issues of privacy and what could be rolled back that we never thought could be rolled back. And we're talking about Brown versus Board today, but we also have major outlets that are saying things like it was an accepted decision, like that everyone was on board for this, and is not acknowledging the suffering, the setbacks that happened because of this decision, not realizing the homes that were interrupted, what Black families had to go through when this decision was made. And I get Roe v. Wade, I totally understand that, but at the same time, you are not going to take the plight and the struggle that this man had to go through with his team and say it was publicly accepted, because what we also know is in '88, that was one of the highest times when schools were integrated, but we are seeing now that in many areas it's looking like the 60s all over again, where you have Black districts that are run by boards of people who don't look like us, where the dollars in the community are not run by people who look like that. That's why today is so important. So welcome everybody to the commemorative luncheon of the 68th anniversary of Brown versus Board. Get excited. We have a distinguished list of people that we're going to be speaking today. I'm excited about everyone that's here, and we will learn about them. But I just want us to not leave this room today and go on as business as usual. Because as my grandma said, she said, I feel like I'm fighting more than I had to when I was younger. I'm not sure what would happen. Everything's being rolled back, and while we laugh about it and make jokes like we about to be on a plantation, we are absolutely not. We're gonna fight, and fight even more. So welcome with me a woman that has become like a friend, a mentor. She's one of the strongest women next to my mama that I know, and who has run this facility at an amazing level, Miss Thomasina Yearwood. She's the president, CEO of Thurgood Marshall Center Trust.
Before we get started this evening or this afternoon, I just want you to know we have a place for Thurgood Marshall on the stage. We always have his presence here. And so this is the seat that Thurgood Marshall would sit. He would have Justice Marshall. All right. I'd like to welcome you to the home of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. Can everyone hear me now? I'd like to welcome you to the home of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust and to our luncheon commemorating the 68th anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education, the landmark 1954 Supreme Court case which declared school segregation unconstitutional. It is particularly fitting that today's luncheon would be held in this space. Named after the Honorable Thurgood Marshall, who spearheaded the legal efforts to break the chains of segregation in education and open the door for African Americans in their pursuit of quality education regardless of race. Our organization, founded in 2000, remains committed to the mission of educating, encouraging, and empowering children, youth, and families, and social economic justice. As you listen to the perspectives of our selected speakers today, we hope that you will be reminded both of how far we have come and the hard work which remains. In many ways, we see evidence of some Americans employing a myriad myriad of methods to turn the clock back and erode the rights of blacks, in which Thurgood Marshall and so many others dedicated their service to secure and preserve through legal means. But we are a powerful people, and we now carry the banner which Thurgood Marshall once held, fueled by the belief that we are America. Enjoy this afternoon. Thank you so much.
The role of the National Newspapers Publishers Association is so important. We talked about the legacy of Thurgood Marshall and why we must fight, but also coupled with that is where we put our message, and that is in Black-owned and operated publications. That's why I want to say thank you, Dr. Chavis, for the work that you do and why it's important for us to support those publications. So please welcome to the podium Dr. Chavis as he gives us remarks.
Thank you very much. I would like for all the members of the Board of Directors of the Thurgood Marshall Center, please stand. Let's give them a hand. Thank you so much. You know, running a national or a regional or a local nonprofit in 2022 requires a strong Board of Directors. And I would like to give another hand to Thomasina Yearwood, the President, for her leadership. It takes a lot to keep a building like this open. It takes a lot to keep a building like this fluent and running. And I'm so pleased that not only is this the national headquarters for the National Newspaper Publishers Association, it's also the national headquarters for the National Bar Association. It's also the headquarters for Reverend Jesse Jackson's Coalition for Justice. They're also here with Barbara Anwar and many other community groups. And we also have some of our Ethiopian brothers and sisters who are down in the lower level. A lot of immigrants here in the DC area from Ethiopia, and they come here to get their footing, their standing, and incorporate into the American society. My remarks will be brief because Scott Boland is going to bring it. You know, we're so pleased that he responded to the invitation. You see him on MSNBC. I don't know how he gets on Fox News, but I would excuse him for being on Fox News and CNN and other matters. But just let me say something on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. What just happened in Buffalo, New York, is still going on in Buffalo. It's a reminder that it's not an isolated incident. And 68 years ago, when the Supreme Court of the United States voted in favor of Thurgood Marshall's argument that separate schools based on race was unconstitutional. And 68 years later, as Evan has pointed out, we're still struggling with school desegregation, with school integration. We're still struggling with the problem of equity, the problem of equality, with the problem of raising up a generation. The reason why I mentioned Buffalo, because it's my position, nobody is born a racist. You become a racist based on the social conditioning, which starts at a very early age. Everybody refers to this guy as being an 18-year-old man. But I'm almost certain that he got his perspectives at a younger age. And unfortunately, there shouldn't be a debate whether or not we should have curriculums in our schools that teach everybody the truth about America and about the world in which we live in. It seems that we're almost in a sense of a denial. But we're here today to focus on the legacy, the living legacy of Thurgood Marshall. And Mrs. Marshall, who's about, 98 years old now?
93.
93 years old, is the honorary member of our Board of Directors. So in her absence, let's give Mrs. Marshall a hand for keeping Thurgood Marshall's legacy alive. Again, we thank all of you. This is a fundraising event, so if you want to make another donation to the Thurgood Marshall, and particularly those, hopefully millions of people are watching this by live stream, and we thank React Radio for putting this live on live stream. Let's give React Radio a hand so people can see this on Facebook. There's a donation button right there on the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust board. You know, if you want to keep Thurgood Marshall's legacy alive, donate to the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. God bless you. I'm going to give the program back to our illustrious Mistress of Ceremony, Ebony. Thank you.
What can I say about our guest keynote speaker, A. Scott Bolden, attorney A. Scott Bolden, one of the sharpest legal minds that I know, and I'm saying that in all sincerity, who on 1 minute can be joking and acting up, and the next will go into a deep conversation about activism and about justice, right? He's a Morehouse man.
Say it again.
He's a Howard man. Ain't you?
You know.
Okay, so Morehouse. Okay, I got you. I'm not even going to say what PWI I went to, but that's all right. But it is truly an honor to have you a part of this program tonight. He is also the former managing partner for Reed Smith, and we actually had our first event, I don't remember how, a few years ago at your firm, and thank you for opening the doors to us. And we also had a couple of attorneys there, and Attorney Ben Crump joined us, and we talked about the rule of law. So his heart is open, and I am intrigued about what he is going to say tonight. He gave us a preview, so I'm about to take notes. But please welcome to the podium, Attorney A. Scott Bolden.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Come on now. We live streaming. Here, we're going to eat. Am I the only thing between lunch right now and lunch?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Somebody needs to change that program. That's correct. Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's working? Okay. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's not working like that. There you go. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. All right. Thank you very much for having me. To the Thurgood Marshall Center for Trust, I want to thank the board and the staff. Thomasina, where are you? You've been doing this outstanding work for a long, long time. I did the fundraiser. I'm probably due to do another one. I can't get the words out. The hard work for your staff. I believe in Thurgood Marshall. As I get into my remarks, you're going to understand why Thurgood, me and my father, right, have a line of lineage, right, professional lineage that is unstoppable, and why my debt of excellence to my father and Thurgood Marshall makes sense, and why I'm such a big supporter of Thurgood Marshall. I will push that button, Dr. Chavis. I will. On behalf of Reed Smith and myself, we'll be donating $10,000 to Thurgood Marshall Institute. Because what Dr. Chavis says, what I'm going to say today, and the trouble, the good trouble we need to be in this country isn't going away very fast. To Dr. Chavis, my comrade, I love him to death. A true freedom fighter, part of the Wilmington 10. We've been together since his days of leadership at the NAACP, at the Hip Hop Nation efforts, as well as the National Newspaper Publishers Association. One of the most important associations in this country, because they tell our story. They don't tell his story or her story. They tell our story. And so if you're not on the list of the NMPA, if you're not there on the getting one of those community-based newspapers, you should be. Let's give him a big round of applause. You know, I've been Dr. Chavis's lawyer for over 10 plus years, but he didn't start out that way. He had his own lawyer. I was representing one of his young men who he grew up with, and I was that person's lawyer. And I wound up staying in touch with Dr. Chavis, and we've been fighting together ever since then, no doubt about it. We love together, we fight together, we pray together, and he has always been in my corner, so thank you. To my other speakers, Ebony and Royal Andrews, who's with the foundation, Emmanuel, who's part of the student program, Jean Heck, and other speakers, thank you for allowing me to at least go first, without a doubt, and share what I can. And if you're going to say the same thing, I'm sorry. I didn't pick the order, without a doubt. I want to talk about the lawyers first in Brown versus Board of Education. My father grew up homeless between the ages of 3 and 6, and then later on as a teenager under the L tracks of Chicago, Illinois. Most of you all know I grew up in Joliet, Illinois. And my father, when they came to get him from his mother and his other 7 brothers and sisters, he was adopted by a family by the name of Dylan in Joliet, Illinois. That's how he got there. And he was a great orator, he was a great thinker, but he had been homeless. His mother had my grandmother had mental health challenges. And Dylan, who took an interest to him, not only got him involved in several youth organizations, but he also introduced him to several books. The first book Dylan gave him was about Thurgood Marshall. And as a result of reading that book at a very young age, he wanted to become a lawyer. Had no lawyers in his family. But it was the driving force in his life whereby he became a lawyer for 30 years. He eventually went to the bench for 20 years. And my father left us, got his wings in August of 2021. Raymond Bolden became a lawyer and a judge because of Thurgood Marshall's work. I became a lawyer, never a judge, but I became a lawyer because of my father. A civil rights leader, a civil rights lawyer, always on his own, former state president of the NAACP. I was raised in an activist household. And so for me, going to Morehouse College, following the leadership of Benjamin Mays, and then going to Howard University Law School, right? And being taught by incredible lawyers who happen to be black. I'll say that one more time, because I want you to say that as you go and leave and matriculate in this community. I don't ever want you to say that I'm a great black lawyer, or that anyone is a great black doctor. Because I don't compete against black people.
That's right.
I compete against everyone.
Yeah.
And my excellence is rooted in Morehouse and Howard and my father. And I compete. I welcome the competition from those who don't look like me. So now we're going to take on a different strategy. We're going to use different language. I'm a great lawyer that happens to be black. Dr. Chavis is a great nonprofit leader who happens to be black, right? Black people talking about black people as minorities. What's a minority? I've never been a minority to anyone. I was taught to love myself and keep power. The power to define how I feel about myself, I will never delegate it to anyone. It's too precious and too powerful. And so as a result, right, I compete against everyone. So don't undermine my excellence or your excellence. There were a lot of lawyers with Thurgood Marshall, some who taught me at Howard, who the combination of cases they worked on various aspects. It wasn't just Thurgood. It was George E.C. Hayes, Charles Hamilton Houston, James Napier, James Carter, Harold Bulwell, Spotswood Robinson III, Chief Justice of the D.C. Circuit Court, Oliver Hill, Robert Carter, Jack Greenberg, the first and only white lawyer to join the team, Charles Scott, John Scott, Charles Bledsoe, At Howard, teaching me trial advocacy. At the alma mater of many of these same individuals, J. Clay Smith, who wrote the seminal book on the black lawyer. Judge William Bryant, the first black federal district court judge in Washington, D.C. Judge Luke C. Moore, the first black marshal, federal marshal for the District of Columbia. Wiley A. Grant, a civil rights fighter and former dean of Howard's Law School. I want to talk about their excellence. I stand on their shoulders. I owe them a debt of excellence. And so when I think about Brown versus Board of Education, it was clearly the landmark case that ruled racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. But more importantly, it was the cornerstone case of the civil rights movement, that decision. It ruled that separate but equal in public education was not equal at all. And even if it was equal, that still was unconstitutional on the 14th Amendment and Equal Protection Clause. I don't want to get too legal with you, but let me just go on. Even if equal, racial segregation was unequal, not only in public education, but other public services as well. It partially overruled or struck down what case? Plessy v. Ferguson. Separate but equal under Plessy v. Ferguson was legal and constitutional and justified by northern states as well as southern states said we're going to have black water fountains. We're going to have black bathrooms. We're going to have black restaurants. We're going to have black and white separate hotels. Plessy v. Ferguson was the underlying case that supported that. And often over the years, and I'm turning 60 this year, I thought about Dr. Chavis, how expensive segregation was. You had to have two of everything. How expensive was it? Over the color of my skin, the melanin in my skin and yours, right? Then what is it about the melanin in my skin that makes people that don't look like me want to fight me, shoot me, undermine me, right? Be separate from me, fight over me, kill me, shoot me, all over the color of my skin? Dr. James, you're right. You're not born with this gene of racism, right? But the environmental struggle and the environmental the environmental piece of what they're taught and what they're trained to be in their communities and in their families. You know, how dangerous is that? So let me go on. The plaintiff, a couple of facts that most of you all probably don't know. Oliver Brown was a welder, and his daughter, they lived in Topeka, Kansas, with 12 other families when they filed the federal district court lawsuit. The family simply wanted to go to the elementary school closest to them that was all white. Instead, they were bused to a segregated school further away from their homes. Alleging that the Board of Education in Topeka's policies were unconstitutional, and they believed the cost of racism and segregation was too high, they actually lost in the federal district court before a three-judge panel. That three-judge panel relied on what case? Plessy v. Ferguson, without a doubt. And so a Thurgood Marshall, chief counsel of the NAACP, appealed directly to the Supreme Court. The United Auto Workers financed that case. They wrote a check to the NAACP for $75,000 so the lawyers could get paid and for other expenses. It was part of several cases, though. Brown versus Board of Education was heard, but it was a combined case that included not only Brown, but Briggs versus Elliott, which was in South Carolina, Davis versus County School Board in Prince Edward County of Virginia, Gephardt versus Belton in Delaware, and Bowling v. Sharp, right here in the District Court of Washington, D.C. It was a really simple decision. It was only 14 pages long, that the public education institutions were inherently unequal, and therefore the laws that required it must be found to be unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment. Specifically, we conclude that the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities inherently are unequal. Therefore, we hold that the plaintiffs and other similarly situated plaintiffs whom the actions have been brought by reason of the segregation complained of, deprived of equal protection or rather are deprived of equal protection under the laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. Inherently unequal due to the psychological effect on our young black children. Keep listening to me because I'm going to tie it up. I'm going to tie it up to 2022 for sure. There was an international aspect to this case, right? The international aspect was that Truman at the time and the DOJ filed amicus briefs arguing that racial segregation was harming U.S. standing in foreign countries and that they needed these countries during the Cold War. Many of these countries who had colonized Africa, right, were becoming uncolonized and independent. You couple that with the Cold War, the U.S. was trying to make friends with most of them. They actually wrote an amicus brief advising the court in support of the plaintiffs in this case. Yeah. Okay, amicus brief is when you're not a party to the Supreme Court, but you can write a friendly brief. You can share your opinion and your analysis by simply saying, I support one decision over the other decision. Want me to say more? I can go on. Historians say that Brown versus Board of Education is one of the 5 most consequential Supreme Court decisions around in the history of the court. But there were flaws, right? They provided no method for desegregating public schools. The next year there was Brown 2 and there was a Brown 3. And in Brown 2 they reaffirmed that the state legislatures could not undo and must apply this standard under Cooper v. America. Oh, but there was massive resistance. I wasn't born until 1962. Oh, but I can read about massive resistance. In 1957, Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus. Now, what kind of name is that? Ooh, you know he's a white person. It's just Orville Faubus fought the Little Rock Nine. Mississippi, Medgar Evers, remember, was killed while appealing and suing the state of Mississippi over Brown versus Board of Education. And Alabama Governor George Wallace, bless his heart. Remember, he blocked the school doors of the University of Alabama Foster Hall. Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. Until the president sent those troops down there, without a doubt. And I believe it was Truman who sent the troops, without a doubt. You should read about Truman. Truman also desegregated the armed forces. He certainly, whether he wanted to do it or not, he was certainly sensitive to it and doing it for whatever reason, right? But here's the deal. The ruling revolutionized the legal framework for race relations, extended the protection of equal rights to all, and inspired oppressed peoples around the world to become advocates of freedom and equality. Langston Hughes said at the time, America has never been America to me, but for a fleeting moment, many in Black America thought America might finally be for them. How sadly mistaken was it? Let's talk about today. The Century Foundation provided a recent study that commemorated the 68 years since Brown versus Board of Education and argued that the public school system is as segregated as ever. 2018-2019 school year, 1 in 6 students attended a school where over 90% of their peers were the same race, with school districts in New York City and Milwaukee. Those are northern cities, those aren't southern cities. The basis for this, they continue pernicious segregation between school districts. Not within them is the primary reason for racial isolation in 280 out of 430 metro areas, the report said. Here's the kicker. The way the district lines are drawn has a huge impact on segregation and the resources that students in segregated districts, financial resources and human resources in segregated districts. Just look at Washington, D.C., west of the park, east of the river. If you have a budget and it's public dollars, why not cut up the budget evenly and distribute it to each of the districts? Just do that, right? If you did that, everybody would at least get the same amount of money. Does that happen in the District of Columbia? It does not. You look at schools west of the park, God bless them. Oh, they got everything. They got 2 parents. They got, little Billy and Cindy, they go to school and they walk hand in hand. Ain't nothing wrong with that, right? Right? But I want Elijah and Tyrone to walk the same way east of the river. Wards 6, 7, and 8, they get less money. Look it up. And the schools are lower performing. The facilities are not the same in the majority of schools west of the Florida. And so every day we walk down the street and see this. Lastly, enrollment losses in urban public schools exacerbated by the pandemic when many students have left for private and charter schools. Theodore Shaw, the former head of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, referred to Brown during his remarks at a symposium as hollow but hollow. Said New York City schools were segregated today as they were before Brown. Hassan Jeffries, associate professor at Ohio State, argued at one symposium that society has underestimated the resolve of segregationists, resolve in pointing to a dedicated three-pronged resistance movement that include grassroots protests, legal filings, and the establishment of private schools. In our society, white resistance continues. It is regarded as many as patriotic when you look at January 6th. That's patriotism, rooted in violence. Critical race theory, the continuing hysterical claims by white Republicans and others that the school's officials have embedded critical race theory, which is a graduate level study, in grade school curriculums. Stop lying. Stop lying. Fox News, stop lying. GOP, stop lying. RNC, stop lying. GOP elected officials, federal and state, stop lying. I'm a pretty educated guy. First time I heard about critical race theory was when they brought it up, when they said it, when they defined it. I've been to grade school, high school, college. What else am I? I'm a lawyer. I went to law school, right? I'm barred in D.C., New York, Illinois. And done well. I'm educated. I've never heard of critical race theory in my life. It argues, literally, that diversity makes white children feel bad. That certain math books, even certain math books, should be pulled from library shelves, like in Florida. The governor, where else? Texas, elsewhere. They just created this, and we never learned about it. White flight, with wealthy suburbs creating homogeneous neighborhoods with housing costs beyond the means of most black families, meaning the schools there will resemble those neighborhoods. Then the spread of private Christian schools, invulnerable to constitutional appeals, continues. All of this by people that don't look like us, while claiming a wholesome innocence and claiming patriotism. Ketanji Brown. 47 senators voted against her for the Supreme Court. Did you know that 25 voted for her less than a year ago for her lower judicial appointments? Right. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham voted for her twice on the lower court. I submit to you the following. Brown will be on a court seemingly more hostile to civil rights and civil liberties than the Earl Warren Warren-led court that handed down the Brown decision almost 7 decades ago. I submit to you. It's a new day, but it feels like the same same racial environment. W.E.B. Du Bois, and I'll close with this. Either the United States will destroy ignorance, or ignorance will destroy the United States. Wow. This is from W.E.B. Du Bois. You go on to say that after decades of running, and with many decades to go, not only have we not pulled away from ignorance, and I say racial ignorance, we're still running neck and neck with racial ignorance. So this question of race in closing. I continue to struggle with why we as a people, black and white, are so uncomfortable with the race question, with the race discussion, with race resolution, right? This melanin in my skin. Why does that bother me so much? Why? Dr. James, I will never understand it. I wasn't born with a racism gene. Why can't we talk about it? Why can't we resolve it? Why can't we educate our children? Why can't the police stop killing us? Why couldn't Dylan Roof stop shooting us in Mother Bethel? Why couldn't the 18-year-old racist shooter stop shooting our grandmothers at the top store? Why? Lord, please deliver me and tell me why. All over the melanin of my skin. Why? Lord, one day, please deliver me from racism in this beautiful but imperfect country of mine. Wow. Thank you.
Stop lying. Ooh, that's what I feel like saying when I go to work. In fact, yell that out in the briefing room, Scott. I need you to have my back. Wow. Let's give him another round of applause. Hey, Scott Bolden. What an amazing speech you gave. I did write down what was the cost of segregation. I never really thought about that before. So many powerful points. How's everybody enjoying the program? You all enjoying it? Yeah? Such rich conversation. But I thought I heard while he was speaking some stomachs growl all the way up here. So I've been given permission that we can go ahead and you can start serving the people here. All right, one more stomach growl.
How do people get served?
They need to come to. So we'll take a quick break, and what we'll do is we'll have the tables come back, and the room where the food is, as soon as you go through the doors, it'll be on your left-hand side. So at this time, we will have a break. Thank you, everybody. All right, we want to welcome everyone back to the commemorative luncheon of the 68th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. You having a good time? I know you having a good time. I've been going around to the tables and listening to some of the conversation. I've been hearing stuff on justice and Thurgood Marshall. I've been hearing stuff on how they gonna go back and get a second plate of them mashed potatoes that are in the back. When we gonna get some more lamb chops? And I've been hearing about that amazing, just help me give thanks, donation by Scott Bolden of $10,000. Brother came in, dropped the mic and dropped some money. I love it. So we need everyone who is watching and listening to also give. There was a donation button. We would not be able to have programs like this if it wasn't for the donations that people are giving, the time that people are giving. So I want to thank those who also, now look, if you want to raise them on that 10 grand and do some more, we can have a bit, would you ready, Scott? We gonna go back? Okay, he said yes. Is that up as in 11? Oh, so the challenge is, no, you're not going up? Okay.
Somebody else to go up.
All right, we want to challenge someone. You may be an employee at a company, but challenge your organization to give back. So I want to thank everybody. I also want to thank, there are members of the Bar Association that are here. Could you just stand? I know you may be a little full, but those who are with the Bar Association, don't look around, you know who you with. Thank you for the work that you do. And also, Jan, where are you? Probably running around, but that is who is responsible for the amazing food that you are having. We want to thank the Happy Factory. So when you think of catering event, look, they clapping for them lamb chops. Okay. And also We Act Radio. I was back there talking to Kimon, and he was like, I'm fired up. Bolden got me fired up. We got to change the narrative here. We got to make it global. I mean, he's ready to start a revolution all the way in the back. So we want to thank you for the work that your radio station does. And we're going to continue with our program. Our next speaker, an amazing attorney who is doing tremendous work, Raul Andrews. He is the executive director of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation. Let us welcome him to this podium. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real, and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. Langston Hughes, let America be America again, 1935. Y'all know him today as busboys and poets. But as you came into the doors of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, the former 12th Street Y, the first YMCA for African Americans in the United States, Langston Hughes lived here while he was a busboy at the Wardman Park Hotel. Dr. Charles Drew played here as a youngster at the old 12th Street Y. In this very gym where you're dining on a sumptuous lunch, thank you, Ms. Jane. NBA Hall of Famer Elgin Baylor ran these courts and learned how to play basketball in this very room. So the ghosts are here of the legacy that we are propped upon as part of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. 68 years of Brown versus the Board of Education. Thank you, Scott Bolden, for bringing the message. I've been following Scott Bolden for 35 years. As Scott Bolden was graduating from the Howard University School of Law, I was entering the Howard University School of Law in the fall of 1987. The first thing they wanted to know, do you know Scott Bolden? Everything I did, yeah, but when Scott was here, everything I said, oh, but when Scott was here. And here I am now as a member of the board of Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, 35 years, and Scott is here. Thank you so much, Scott. You always made us proud, and you make us proud, Scott, because you know that's what you're supposed to do. You understand the moment, you understand the assignment, and you deliver the message. Thank you, and God bless you. I want to thank our chair, Dr. Chavis, our vice chair, Sandra Lamb. Sandra, please stand up and let them see you. This is officially the brain trust. Our leadership is here. We have board members here. Our CEO, Tommy Yearwood, who has been a friend, a champion, and supporter of mine, up to and including when I went to interview for the job to take over the foundation at the American Psychiatric Association. I was looking for all kind of places to prepare. And I had more than a number of options, even though we were in a pandemic. But I called Tommy and I said, Tommy, I need to go to the museum. I need to go where the greats have been if I'm going to take another leap. So can I come to the Thurgood Marshall Center as that sanctuary for me to help me prepare for my final year? Tommy said, you know, y'all told me how Tommy is, a voice all song. We don't really have anybody in the building right now. If you're coming by yourself, promise not to tell nobody. We probably can make some arrangements. You're going to be by yourself, though, don't tell nobody. I said, well, no, Tommy, I'm a fiduciary. But it was here where I prayed. It was here where I studied. And I'm proud to say that the official photo that I use in my current role is a photo that was taken right out there in the lobby when we came into the room. And so the Thurgood Marshall Center has been with me, and I'm carrying it everywhere I go. So quickly, because we don't have all day, Dred Scott. Dred Scott, 1857. That's not critical race theory, that's true. It's in the book. Yeah. Blessed versus Ferguson, 1896. It's not critical race theory. It's in the book. Brown versus Board of Education, 54, 68th anniversary. But guess what happened? The law changed fundamentally. But hearts and minds didn't all change. Because by 1968, we had the Kerner Commission report. So, Supreme Court, 9-0, unanimous decision. Although, Scott, there may not be a thing such as super precedent anymore. So we got to remain vigilant. We have in ceremony. Don't think they can't change whatever they want to change. Brown versus Board, 1954. Kerner, 1968. Separate but equal, inherently evil, unconstitutional. Kerner Commission, less than 15 years later, the nation's moving toward two societies. One white, one black, separate and unequal. Brown was law of the land in 68. The Fair Housing Act was on the books. 64 Act was on the books, Voting Rights Act gutted, but on the books in 65. So that we cannot take for granted, because the reality of it is, if it takes a court order to tell you that you have rights, how many rights do you have anyway? When they laid the cornerstone of the District of Columbia, first thing they told me when I came to D.C., hey, it's a Washington and it's a D.C. It's a Washington and it's a D.C. You need to be very careful that you need to understand that Washington, where Scott and I play every day, and D.C., where if they don't know you, they're going to get to know you. Right? They'll make themselves known. And you've got to be able to navigate both worlds. But as I was telling somebody during our lunch hour, the challenge with separate but equal, in reality, is that when I go to a meeting and I'm driving, even at the ripe age of 57 plus years of age, I am always cognizant from A to B that there could be a black and blue situation. Now, when I went to my 10 o'clock meeting this afternoon and I sat in the C-suite, how many people were worried about I might spill coffee on my clothes, I'm running a little late because I got to walk the dog, but I'm prepared to do whatever I have to do at 10 o'clock. But here I am, getting up, putting on my armor of God, and I'm thinking, well, what if something happens to me between home and the job that might cause Tommy or Dr. Chambers to have to say, well, Ron was supposed to be here, unfortunately ran into a situation, and we hope everything is going to be okay. That's 45 years of driving. It's been on my mind every time I get in the car to this day. And Brown is the law of the land. To the point where when I brought my teammate Joy Lord Montgomery, who runs our schools, and Justice Lord Joy, stand up and see. She's in the house. I'm learning as much from Joy as I'm trying to teach in my role as coach, but the reality of it is, Joy and I took public accommodations to get here. I'm not even going to try to drive. Something could happen, but it's not going to be with me or you behind the wheel. We're going to go what we got to do, we're going to do what we got to do. So here's what we need to understand. Scott talked a lot about Brown. I want to spend a moment talking about the companion DC case of Bowling versus Sharp. Because Bowling versus Sharp was decided on the same day as Brown versus Board of Education. It desegregated or paved the way for the desegregation of schools in the District of Columbia. Now, it was all about Philip Sousa, what then was junior high school, now middle school. And they didn't want to let blacks go to, believe it or not, did not want to let blacks go to a middle school, junior high school in Southeast Washington, D.C. Now, that was in the 50s. Brown happens. When I first walked into the door of Sousa Middle School in the spring of 1977, that was part of my spring break to come to Washington. And I had to go, Scott, to Sousa Junior High School. It wasn't a white person to be seen. All black, all under-resourced. But what there was an appreciation for me was, what does it take for those children and their kinfolk to get them to school, just like I talked about our neighborhood. And so the reason why I'm proud to be up here representing not only the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, but the American Psychiatric Association and its foundation, is because we haven't dealt with the generational traumas, the depression, the anxiety that goes into 68 years. Yes, Iris McCollum-Green can do everything she wants to do as one of the esteemed lawyers in here. But don't nobody know what she got to go through in order to prepare to perform with excellence. James Wright writing those stories. They write themselves, James. But who's thinking about what you have to go through when you're writing those stories? Sometimes black and white. Sometimes black on black. And you got to put pen to paper to tell that story. There is no health, ladies and gentlemen, without mental health. So yeah, your knee hurts, but it's something that goes with it. Here's what statistics tell us, and this is what Joy has taught me. By the time our children reach the age of 16, they've experienced one significant traumatic event. 50% of those kids will never receive any treatment for that traumatic event. They just carry it with them. And sometimes what we see is acting out, but we don't know where those triggers came from. We call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Then you have these school resource officers. That's police in school. Only about 1/3 of our children actually get in trouble at school, no matter what race or ethnicity they are. Only about 1 out of every 3 or so get in trouble. 70% or better of that 30%, black and brown. So yeah, you can segregate or desegregate all you want in a court order, but if I can't keep you in the school, or if I'm encouraging your truancy, then some bad things are going to happen. Let my land be where land is liberty and I can breathe free. How do I do that if I can't unravel the emotional shackles that I'm buried down? So, yes, we give thanks to the parents of Linda Brown for putting their daughter on the front lines. We give thanks and we're grateful for the sacrifices of the mother of Spotswood Bowling Jr. And what was interesting about Bowling Jr. was when he passed away at 51 years of age, he was working for DC Human Services in substance abuse and addiction education. So there was a parallel with me and Spotswood Bowling. I never knew I had. He was putting in the work because he knew what the work needed to be put in. And the reality is all of us have to keep putting in the work, but where we have to change the paradigm. That which you have been trained to do, that which you have been educated to do that exceedingly well, forever, right? Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That's Arthur Ashe, that's not me, but that's all of us. So, if it's catering and you don't know how to cook, you don't need to be the caterer. Do the thing you know how to do. If you know how to speak, speak. If you know how to write, write. You can help somebody do that. But what we have to keep in mind is that what we need to pledge right now, and I'm going to take my seat. As I speak, there probably are, Ebony, a handful or more people who have they've attained the high status as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. As I speak, if I go on LinkedIn right now, somebody is getting congratulated or taking congratulations, and we need that. Now, it's 68 years after Brown. When did we need DE&I? Is when Brown was decided. It's not critical race theory. It's history. I can't get over something if you don't tell me what I'm supposed to get over. I'm ready to get over. I got over Dr. Chavis, but I'm getting over though. I'm getting over Dred Scott. I'm trying to get over Plessy versus Ferguson. Dred Scott, but for the 13th Amendment, is still the law of the land. They never abrogated, annulled, declared invalid Dred Scott. They just said, oh, they passed an amendment. We don't need nothing to do. They can change all other kind of laws. Why they don't take Dred Scott off the book? Right?
Yes.
He talked about Orville Faubus and Wallace. The reason why we love Wiley Branton is because we didn't understand when Brown was decided 68 years that all the school boards were going to declare, oh, you got to just run through this case all the way through. Right? Brown versus Board was a Supreme Court decision where the ultimate victors were on the appealing side. That means they had a trial in a trial court. Judge told them no. Okay, well, we going to appeal. Years later, you talk about the cost. There are historians who will tell you that the briefs in opposition to Brown, a 9-0 decision, could fill a room in the Library of Congress. So we have more work to do, but we have the people to do it. So what we have to do is, for these empty tables, what are you and I going to do from this day forward as we head into the 69th anniversary round to bring them here, because we need their time, talent, and leadership. And if you do it, and if I do it, it'll be a little bit different, because we can't be here like this in a hollow 7 years. Yeah. Still talking about the same. So I want to say God bless you. I want to say God bless the Thurgood Marshall Center and the Thurgood Marshall family. But in a time when our world and the only certainty is more uncertainty, in this deeply divided and increasingly diverse nation that must be saved from itself, God help and save the United States of America, because we need it to be America again. Langston Hughes, thank you very much.
Give another round of applause to Thurgood Marshall Center Trust. Oh, my goodness. Wow. So just FYI, I was tweeting out while you were talking, because I was trying to take those and put it out there. You said some amazing things, and also added a challenge to those who are watching. I just want to repeat it. If we want to have change, if we want to see things different, then it also takes us donating and us giving and us participating in this change. Again, thank you again, Rob, for your words. Our next guest speaker is Emmanuel Eppie Jr. He is a professor at Woodson High School, and he is over our Thurgood Marshall student programs. Please give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Can you hear me well? I'm humbled to be up here. I want to thank our president, Ms. Yearwood, our chairman, Dr. Chavis. Thank you to the board, to everyone who's here. I'm an educator. Science teacher at Woodson High School. And as I sit over there and I learn and I listen and I'm taking everything in, miss my oohs, eyes, oh man, come on. You know, all I can hear is knowledge and wisdom, is what's needed. You know, my story starts years ago, when my mother was a science teacher in New York. And I didn't know I wanted to be a science teacher. I didn't think I did. But somehow it was in my mind and I didn't understand it. And so years later, when I became a science teacher, I said, how did this happen? All right? What are our kids learning as they're watching us? Where do they get the ideas from to become? How did that happen? You know? I'm not from here, from New York, but the black experience is the black experience. By the time I came here in DC, I started my career here in DC, just down the street in Cardozo. It was a whole different experience. I loved it, because I love teaching. When that came to a close, I went to a place that took me back to a place. I taught in the jail, IYP, for about 2 years, through the pandemic. And some of the brightest minds came through my classroom in orange jumpsuits, right? With the ankle bracelets to the floors, right? Our young black men, and some black women, were seated in places that none of us dream of being, nor dream of our children being. So when I was fortunate enough to be recruited by the great Dr. Rick Lee,
Yes, sir.
you know, to join this mission, this vision of being a beacon, it was natural. I looked at Dr. Rick Lee and I said, dude, you are literally doing everything every educator dreams of doing. Putting your heart and your sleeve here. I'm with you. How much does it pay? 3, say, let's go. I'm with you. All right? Some things are deeper than other things. All right? And that's why we're here. All the work that the great justice accomplished. And I have 2 quotes that I wrote down from him. One was, what each of us must come to realize is that our intent always comes through. And that you do what you think is right and let the Lord catch up. And I think that's what our student programs is about. I think that's what we're all here, what all this is about. How do we put it all together and work together with us here and those who are watching and those who are outside here say, okay, how do we get our students, our young people, and our young people, because they have a lot of time, from where they are to where we think they can be and where they think they can be or afraid to be. And that's what we're doing here at the Thurgood Marshall Student Programs. The aim is to, of course, with the mission statement, be a beacon for superior student development in communities across America by expanding access and opportunity from cradle to career. Dr. Rick Lee wrote that. There are 3 areas that we want to focus on: STEAM, leadership and development, and of course, diversity and inclusion. STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. Those areas pretty much run the nation. They run the nation. It's all about technology, and we want our kids to be able to compete. Not just against Black America, but against everyone. All right, I heard that earlier. Thank you, Mrs. Scott.
Yep, I'm sorry.
I took a quote.
I'm
took
listening.
a quote. You told me I could steal whatever I wanted. I took that quote. We want them to be able to compete against everything.
Oh,
to find their voice. Leadership development is about character development. We want our kids to see themselves as leaders. Too many times in classrooms, our students tend to want to sit in the back. You have 4 seats in front. There are a few that may have the courage to come sit in the front. What does it take to get all our students to come and say, I want the front? Well, you're in the front, it's okay. Can I sit in the front, please? All right? Diversity and inclusion, their voice matters. There's so much confidence in this room. There's so much strength in this room. There's so much power in this room. There's so much knowledge in this room. And I would love for our students, we all would love for our students to feel that within themselves, to know that they matter too. They have something of value to contribute, to share, to give, to receive, and to pass on. Legacy. You know, as I took a photo of this chair, I looked at it and I said, you know, this is amazing. And I thought about his mentor. Everyone has a mentor. No one can do anything alone. No one achieves their greatness alone. So I'm here doing the work I can. We'll continue to be more aggressive and push forward, doing the work we can with the student programs. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all that you do to support students here in DC and across America. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for the work that you do here at Thurgood Marshall Center. Thank you for the work that you do also with your students at Woodson. Let's give them another round of applause. I love what you said about the students. How can we get those students who would normally go to the back to come to the front? And that is also part of the work that we are doing here. We are coming to the conclusion of our ceremony. Again, I want to thank all of the guest speakers that we have come to the podium. Mr. Eppie, thank you for speaking today. Mr. Andrews, thank you. And of course, our keynote, Attorney Bolden, I think he stepped out for a while. And also, Dr. Chavis, thank you for your words. I'm going to bring Dr. Chavis back to the podium so that he can end us out.
Thank you very much. I just want our teacher, you know, in the public school system, we don't find many black male teachers. And I want Emmanuel Eppie, stand up, brother. This is a young science teacher, you know, and he volunteered as a school teacher to help lead the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust student program. And he mentioned Dr. Rick Lee. I just want to let everybody know that Dr. Rick Lee was the vice chair of our board, but tragically passed away about 5 months ago. And the board rededicated ourselves to keep the student program alive. And Emmanuel, thank you for your words. He's also a part of the National STEM's Honor Program. And one of the things you're going to be hearing about the Thurgood Marshall Center, Dr. Primus Stan. Dr. Primus is over our student program and the National Newspaper Publishers Association. He's an educator. And through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have funding to push our young people to strive for excellence in the public schools, particularly in STEM. So we're going to be working with you, particularly in math. You know, it's Dr. Tony Bowman is here. Tony, Broward, stand up, man. The reason I wanted to stand up because if anybody knows the history of African people, it's Tony Broward. And we are the originators of mathematics. We're the originators of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But the miseducation, not just of black people, the miseducation of whites, is what probably enables these false ideologies like white supremacy to take flight and to take hold among this society and other societies in the world. So I just wanted to pay a special thank to Emmanuel for the work you're doing now at Woodson. And it's our goal to have all of the public schools in D.C., we're going to start at D.C., to make STEM a priority, honors a priority. And we will be hearing more about it as we go forward. But once again, lastly, I do want to recognize the staff of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Just everybody standing is here. Claudette, Stacy, Judy, Dr. Primus, Jason, and others. We all work together. One thing about working in this building, Thomasina knows, Betty knows, we all become family. We're here in the Shaw District, which is a historic district in the District of Columbia. And we're going to do everything that we can, not only to make this a vibrant center, not only for the Shaw community, but for throughout D.C., but also throughout the nation. I do want to thank Robert Sava, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, who just made a $100,000 contribution to the Thurgood Marshall Center, so that we can renovate the HVAC system here in the Thurgood Marshall Center. So we're off to a good start. And this is a good program. We have many of these programs. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules today to come to the luncheon. And you can look forward for more programming. And I guess, Thompson, we can say now that the Thurgood Marshall Center is officially reopened. All right. We're officially reopened. And to our listening audience, we thank React Radio for making it possible for us to be live streamed on Facebook. This program will be repeated on social media. And Stacy is writing a national article about today's program. We thank all of our speakers. We thank all of you for coming out. Have a blessed day. Please keep the legacy of Thurgood Marshall alive in tribute to not only what he did 68 years ago, but what we have to do in 2022 and going forward. Last thing is, in many states today, including my home state, there's a primary. And I've already heard there's low voter turnout. There's something wrong when we have low voter turnout in the black community. For all of what is going on, not only in Buffalo, and Florida, and Texas, and even here in D.C., we have to vote. We have to go out and vote in record numbers. So in the spirit of Thurgood Marshall, thank you. God bless. Have a great day.